We want to welcome everybody here. Two guests. I sat on Sunday morning and I eventually said to Gideon and to Neville Nevling that they needed to share it with a wider audience. So we have invited a lot of folks, including our little committee, to listen to the incredibly exciting things that are happening worldwide. And then we want to, if that's all right with you, Neville, we want to record this and we'll spread it out a bit further. Gideon has spoken on our group. So I'd like to, Neville, would you mind just telling us in a few minutes just who you are, where you came from, your background and everything like that, and just so we can get to know you a bit?
Yeah, I suppose I could do that. I was born in Benoni. I grew up in Alberton. And I am probably a fourth generation Seventh-day Adventist. My grandmother and great-grandmother, they were Adventists. Ivy Constance Kate, she went to Benoni North, to the church there. My great-grandmother went to church with her there. I have some cousins and some other family in the church that have served the church well, one of them being Ray Gerard, who's now in Australia, most of you know probably. And Eric Armour was my uncle, was one of the union presidents. So that's a little bit of my background as far as Adventism is concerned. I actually did not grow up in a Seventh-day Adventist church. I grew up in a Dutch Reformed church. My mom, of course, from my grandmother's side was Adventist, but my mom, in those days, the ladies went to the church of their husbands, and my father, he was Dutch Reformed, so my mom went to the Dutch Reformed church, and we grew up in that Dutch Reformed church. In my final year of catechism in the Dutch Reformed church, I had a little bit of an altercation with the minister of the church and decided I will not go back to that church again. Told my mom and them that that was the end of that. I will not go there. I will not be confirmed there. And decided to go to where most of my friends were, in the Methodist church. That didn't last too long because I think that was the gap my mom wanted. And so my mom arranged for old Pastor Neof, who was then the minister of Primrose Congregation. But Alberton was also part of his constituency. And so old Pastor Neof, not Arnold's father, but I think it's family of Arnold's. But Gary, you should know, I think Pastor Neof's son was living at Helderberg. He was doing medicine at Stellenbosch, I think, and he would have been around in your time, I think. Your microphone is muted, Gary.
I remember Pastor Neof in Victoria days. You know?
Ah, okay, so you know him well, the one with the little finger.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he came around and we had weekly Bible studies. And, well, that was that. I became a Seventh-day Adventist fully, I suppose, in my 16th year, when I was 16 years old. And then I went to Helderberg College, spent some time there, went back to the Transvaal. I started a career in computers with Barclays Bank, and I worked in computers for a very, very long time, ending up as the data processing manager for the Barlows Group lots of responsibility, lots of stress, things that you don't need in life. And in 1984, end of 1984, I decided to go back to Heidelberg College again for a second time, this time as a married student. And we spent time there until 1987. I was then offered a job, quite incredibly, against all odds, as going to the Southwest African Broadcasting Corporation and taking the position of the religious department's head. Worked there, spent a lot of time in broadcasting, 17 years, doing all kinds of things, religious broadcasting, broadcasting for language services, doing television news anchoring, and just did a tremendous amount of work. And then I decided after 17 years that was enough. I've had enough, and I am now going to retire. So I bought myself a place in the north of Namibia, Otjiwarongo, and my idea was that I would, just do a little bit of work, look after the north central parts of Namibia. There's no pastor here looking after Afrikaans speaking people. So I thought maybe, I'll sort of very low key do some work here. That didn't go well because a very nice guy came along. His name was Ezekiel Ndahangwapu. Brilliant, brilliant man. If you see a photo of him, you will think it's our first president in Namibia, Sam Nujoma. He looks spitting image of him. And he came into my door one day, and one of my workers came and called me and said, "Your pastor says he's here for a visit." I thought, this is a new one. Okay, let's go and see who this is. And I got out there, and there was Ezekiel. And he said to me, "I've come here to solicit your assistance." I said, "For what?" He said, "I want you to start an Afrikaans church." I said, "You can see my gate over there. It's open. You can go. It's all right. You don't have to say goodbye. You can just go." He said, "No, what do you mean?" I said, "No, I'm not going to get involved in it." Within just a few minutes, it'll be branded racism, and I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. I don't get involved with that kind of thing. He said to me, "No, you don't understand." I said, "What do you mean I don't understand? I think I understand life very well at this point in time. I know what's going on here." And he said, "No, I don't think you get it. The people that I want you to preach for are black people. They're not white, but they want to know Afrikaans. They want to listen to Afrikaans." I said, "All right, you don't have to go. I'll close my gate. You can sit down. Now we can talk." And so we started a discussion, and eventually we started the church in North Central Namibia, an Afrikaans church for mainly the groups that prefer speaking Afrikaans, and there's a lot of them here. Damara Nama people really speak Afrikaans. They don't speak the other languages. In fact, their own language, Damara, is almost a lost language. There's very, very few people that actually still really know that language very well. And they just don't deal with English. So it was a good thing, and we started off, and it was a good group. We continued going as a group. But then I got involved with a number of other things, and Gideon was part of that. And we started with a camp meeting in this area. The camp meetings grew. We got international speakers, and eventually it became quite large. At that point in time, I'd already started participating in the total member involvement outreaches. I went to preach on invitation in Georgia and a couple of other places. And I came back and I knew that I had found the material that was needed. And because of my computer experience and because of my broadcasting experience and knowing how these things fit together, I figured out that we could do evangelism on cell phone so that we can bridge the logistical nightmares that we have here in Namibia. And initially, that was it. I designed this and I got this going just to assist and help myself in this area here in Namibia. Well, that turned out to be a totally different story altogether because it spread like wildfire. And without going into too much detail, I was called by the General Conference. I was asked to fly out to General Conference, and they gave me 2 days and I had to explain everything to them. And they said, right, this is what we want. We want this to be rolled out worldwide. And from now on, you're in our employ, if that's okay with you. And so nowadays I work for Adventist World Radio and for total member involvement for the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And my job is to train people in digital evangelism worldwide. That's my job. So that's who I am. That's a little bit of background. And yep, I hope that's enough. You're muted, Frank.
I thought you were going to share just a short little bit, but it was almost the whole story of your life. Let me just sort this out. So I was wondering, you're going to be sharing a bit of the worldwide story after this. Would you mind opening with prayer?
I don't. No, that'll be a pleasure. All right, let's bow our heads. Lord, what a privilege it is to meet together, and there's a lot of us, some that we know, some that we don't know, but it's great to be brothers and sisters together. And we know that when we meet, you have promised that you will be in our midst. So we are very, very happy that you are present through your Holy Spirit. Lord, thank you for guiding our thoughts. Thank you for opening our minds. Thank you for opening our hearts to receive whatever it is that you want us to know. And we thank you for the courage to not only hear it, but that we will make it part of our lives, and that we will be your face in this world that desperately needs to see you. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
All right. I'll leave it over to you because I sat as an excited listener on Sunday and I said, please, you need to share this wider than just with me. And that's why I invited you, and I've asked different folks around the country to come and join to listen. So yourself and Gideon, tell us a bit about what's happening. I love that it was Fiji where you went and did the training, all that type of thing. Share it with us so that we can get an idea of what's happening from GC level down all the way through. Would you mind sharing that again? Yeah, I can even push the replay button from Sunday.
I will certainly share that. I don't have a problem, but I do see that Gideon is on. Gideon, if your computer is right, I think it would be wise for us to start with the promise of the Seventh-day Adventist Church first, because I think very few people know this. It's something that we have as a church. We have a promise, an official promise. Not many people know this, but it was voted at the General Conference session. Gideon and I was at the session where it was voted, actually. And since then, it's actually been interesting that I've been to a number of places where I've actually also spoken on this thing, and always to find out, but that people have no idea that as a church we have this promise, and it's a wonderful promise, and it's something that underlies whatever I'm going to share with. So Gideon, if you are ready, then I want to ask you to present that that promise first, and then I can go on from there. Is that okay with you, Gideon?
No problem, Neville, no problem. Let me just plug in now. I won't be able to hear you, but I'm going to plug in my microphone. Okay, that's it.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm just going to put my share screen on and get into the promise. Neville, if you can just, let me just close this so I can see you guys. Neville, can you actually, just on my phone, just send me a WhatsApp that you are seeing the promise on the screen. Let me just load it again. Excuse me. There it is. Right, let's get into, sorry, something happened here. My share screen is paused now. Why does it say that? Let me make this bigger again. I'm terribly sorry. Just give me a second. Something happened. Oh my goodness, what's happened here? Let me just stop share, go back in and share again, right? There we go. Neville, just send me a WhatsApp to say that this is showing, please. I have no idea and I can't hear you because I've got my microphone in. Okay, it's showing. Great, thank you. Right. Products are created in the factory, but brands are created in the mind. This is a German that immigrated to the States many, many years ago, and he's the father of branding worldwide. It is a concept that he actually introduced to the world. So this is a profound statement. Products are created in the factory, but brands are created in the mind. Now, where are we as SDAs positioned? Where are we as Adventists positioned? Do we have a brand? When people think of Adventism, what goes through their mind? I'll give you an example. Now, just let me just stop share screening because I want to show you something else. If you can see my hand, if I do this, what do you think of? Let me just put
Microphone now so I can hear you guys. If I do this, what do you think?
Nike.
Mike.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Now, where are we as Adventists? If Nike has a worldwide recognizable promise that they've made, where are we as Adventists? And this is what this is all about. I just want to share my screen again and get back into that. There we are. So where are we as Adventists? Our most globally recognized element is what? It is obviously this one. That's our most globally recognized element. So when we take this a bit further, I just want to, I just want to get to the bigger screen. Now, change is the law of life. And those who only look to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. John F. Kennedy. That's a profound statement. Change is the law of life. So was it possibly time for us as a worldwide church, the biggest Protestant movement on this globe, to take a rethink about our branding? When people look at Adventism, who are we? What is the picture that they get? Those who only look to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. So very fortunately, our dynamic leadership at GC looked into this and came up with a repositioning of Seventh-day Adventists, which was profound and very necessary and very, very important. Now, we are in the digital age, which changes things dramatically. That technically means that we have approximately 2,600 satellites hovering 100 to 140 kilometers statically above the crust of the earth. And this is why we are connected worldwide digitally. And this is why when you phone somebody on the other side of the world, literally 4 seconds later, their phone rings. We are connected digitally worldwide. And this opens up new avenues and creates new opportunities. Now, this also means there is a lot for us to actually take up, to actually absorb, to actually experience. When we drive in the motor car and you drive, let's say, from Johannesburg to, let's say, Kempton Park, you see all of these signboards, and every one of them has a subliminal effect on your subconscious. And there are hundreds. In fact, Neville showed me research that prove that in one 24-hour period, you can have up to 5,000 influencers that actually influence you, that actually talk to you. It's not just billboards, it's all sorts of things. So there's a lot of clutter out there in this digital age. So it's never been easier to speak up, but it's never been harder to be heard. It's very difficult to be heard. There's a lot of clutter out there. If I go back one, you will see that the average person is bombarded by approximately 5,000 branded messages each day. The attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. And the child that grows up today, his attention span with the way that he's growing up nowadays is approximately 8 seconds. So in other words, that means in the digital age, we have a very small window of opportunity to literally grab that person's attention. Have you seen the youth today on their smartphones? Their thumbs go crazy. You can't even follow the speed of their thumbs. And within seconds, if they don't find anything on this page, they drop it and they're onto the next page and they flit around like a butterfly. You have approximately 8 seconds to grab their attention. So it's never been easier to speak up because of the digital technology, but it's being harder and harder to be heard. So when you look at Adventism, everything that we've done in the past comes back to our central brand. So if you take, for instance, Jesus, the Hope Channel, the Sabbath, the Spirit of Prophecy, all of these, salvation, etc., the millennium, the Godhead, the three angels, everything focuses back onto our global image, so I can put it that way. Can you see that all of these arrows are pointing inwards towards that? And that actually should be the reverse, because what happens now is the Spirit of Prophecy must be able to talk with this one brand and give the same message as the pioneers, as Hope Channel, as Neville in Namibia, as Frank in Natal, as somebody in Cape Town, Arnold in Cape Town, as an example. We should give the same message, but we don't. We do not have a global recognizable brand that says exactly who we are and why we are here and what we can do for them. Because when you look at that Nike symbol says to you quality shoes, from affordable to frightfully expensive. I think the other day I heard of somebody paying 34,000 Rand for a pair of Nikes. So from affordable to frightfully expensive. It has a tremendous value. That little symbol has tremendous value. And we have nothing within Adventism that compares to that. Nothing whatsoever. So when we reverse those arrows, that means that our brand, like Nike has this little tick mark, our brand should be able to talk the same language. Doesn't matter if it's Hope Channel or The Great Controversy or Neville in Namibia or Frank in Natal or Arnold in Cape Town. We should all talk the same language. We should all say the same thing, because our point of departure is the recognizable symbol, the brand, the logo, whatever you want to call it. That is vitally important. So we need to reverse this with a very strong identity that every one of us can identify ourselves with. Now, we need, remember that a brand is actually a promise. It is an undertaking. So when you look at Nike's symbol, that promise means quality. If you're prepared to spend 15,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand, you're going to get value for money. And I'm a walker. I've walked with all types of shoes. And every time I go the cheap route, I actually damage my body. I damage my legs. I damage my left knee, etc. When I wear proper shoes that are researched, that doesn't happen. So that's the promise that is behind the Nike symbol. And that symbol is what you and I need to exude. If it's Namibia or Cape Town or Natal, we need to, with that one symbol, say exactly the same thing. So this promise needs to reposition Adventism worldwide. We must talk the same language in North America or in Natal or in Papua New Guinea or in Nepal. Doesn't matter where we are, we need to talk the same language. Now remember that a symbol, like all symbols, functions much more as a container of attributed meaning, much more than a theological statement. So it is we, you and I, that are members of this church who gives this symbol meaning. And it's thus very, very important that whatever we do must be done in such a way that we talk the same language. Very, very, very important. So whatever happens in Cape Town, from an Adventist point of view, must be exactly the same message that AWR exude worldwide, or that the pastor in let's say Paul Petersburg exudes at the same time. Very, very important. Right, so in other words, we need to use the symbol as central, talking the same language to every congregation, every member worldwide, and every department that we have in the church. Now, it must say one thing. It must have one message, and it must be the same message. Now, I want to just backtrack slightly. What happens when a brand doesn't keep their promise? Then that brand starts losing customers. People start distancing themselves from the brand because they can no longer trust that product or that brand, because they are receiving different messages. Now, at the moment, Adventism has a different message in, let's say, your group here in Natal versus, for instance, Arnold in Cape Town and Neville in Namibia. I promise you those will be three different messages. And that should not be so. It means that if somebody like Rita, who sort of comes from an Adventist route in Natal, goes to the northern part of Namibia, the promise that she carries with her from Natal must be exactly the same promise and the same brand message that Neville would have if he drove north to the same part of northern Namibia. There should never be different messages. That causes people to lose trust in the brand. So we have a situation where local churches, hospitals, schools, websites whatever, every church member, etc., has different touch points. But those touch points, and that's a business term, should be the same in every congregation. We have 80,000 congregations around the world, and we have 70,000 home groups. So let's call that 150,000 churches worldwide. Every single congregation should have the same touch point, giving the same message. If it's a church member, or it's a publication they're giving out, or if it's one of their schools or one of their hospitals, it should be the same touch point. Now, what was our previous brand? A couple of years ago, we brought a brand onto the market. And if I now switch my microphone off and I would ask every single one of you to tell you what was our brand, I promise you that not two people would give us the same answer. It was a mega failure. Not one of you will be able to remember our previous promise. It was a people of hope. You might remember it now when you think back, but it was not in your mind 7 seconds ago. So that was a dismal failure. Now, it's not about your brand. When you communicate a brand promise, the person you are serving must be the main focus of all communication. It's very important that a brand isn't just a symbol. There's a lot of other baggage that goes with it, and we need to communicate all of that so that the brand promise becomes absolutely cemented in the person who you are involved with. So when you look at the checklist of a promise or a brand, the focus must be on the customer, not the brand. At the end of the day, you and I have to satisfy the customer. If you are selling bread from your bakery in your kitchen, you must satisfy the customer. If you have a fancy brand and you've spent 50,000 bucks on a brand and you cannot make a decent loaf of bread, your brand means zero. It means nothing. Your customer will not be happy with your product, so the brand then falls flat. It must be delivered through every touch point. So when somebody walks through your front gate, the message at that gate that you are a bread baker, the smell that he starts getting when he walks closer to your front door, when he walks into the area where the different breads, the whites and the whole wheats and the healthy ones and the ones with no this and that in, etc., all the 20 different types of products that you produce must be able, through all of those touch points, it must absolutely give the same message. When you pay for it, when you go home and you eat that bread, it must carry the same message. Number 3, it must include the essence of the brand and the reason for its existence. I want you to remember that third point. We're going to come to that just now when it comes to Adventism. It must reflect the original intent of the founders. And people within the organization must identify with the promise. So everybody that works in this bakery at your home must carry and identify with this promise. They must know what your brand promise is, and they must be able to talk that promise. They must be able to act that promise. They must be able to live that promise while they are busy working and serving the client. So once again, you've got a central brand, and when you look at Adventism, we need to be able to, in all our different touch points, if it's stewardship or Hope Channel or the Millennium or Adventist World Radio or whatever it was, Pathfinders, we must be able to talk and communicate with exactly the same, using the same words, using the same brand. It's important, in fact, when somebody goes onto your website, Cliff, it's very important, Frank, that they see the brand of this group. And that brand should be the same as our website in Namibia. It should be visible there. It should be visible when you walk into any congregation. The first thing you see, maybe it's embroidered out in a carpet. Maybe it's right in the wall in front of you, printed out very nicely, or sign write it very decently. But they need to see this brand promise. Wherever you are, when it comes to Nike, you can be in any country, the packaging will be identical, the branding will be identical, the coloring on that packaging will be identical worldwide. We need to get all congregations and all digital church groups, as you are, to have the same brand. We must talk the same language. In Namibia, South America, Cape Town, or Natal must be the same language. Right, so our leadership in Washington got together and they thrashed out a brand. Remember that a brand is a promise. It is an undertaking. What is it? We can help you understand the Bible to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. I want you to just think about that for a while. We can help you to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. Now, Neville and I were there at the launch of this, and we have subsequently, the last couple of months, tried to pull this apart. We have failed dismally. This is spot on. This is stunning. And the more you think about it, and the more you digest this, sleep over it tonight, think about it again, please take your cell phone and photograph this from your screen. I want you to never, ever forget this branding. We can help you understand the Bible to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. I'm going to discuss a few things that will hammer the nail in. Every person must understand the truth for themselves. We don't brainwash people. We don't manipulate people out there. We don't coerce. We say to them, we can help you. We don't force people. We can assist you. We are there as their friend to help them to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. Number two, this is beyond cognitive Bible studies. The promise is not that we will teach the Bible, but that we will help you to understand it. So we invite them to take time off and to spend a Sabbath with us at church so that they can see how we are, what type of Christians are we. Most people that I've met in the past, this has happened to all of us. Oh, you're an Adventist. In other words, you are like the Jehovah's Witnesses. That alone proves that we have failed in branding. So we need to build Jesus-like relationships so that person can really be led through that relationship. In other words, when you say, I can help you to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus, that is leading people to Jesus-like relationships. So without that, no one will ever be able to understand the Bible. And every one of us understand that in our own personal, private, devotional life. We can study the Bible till we are blue. You can have 5 doctorates. You can have a professorship in religion. But if you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you are actually lost. So it's very important to understand the Bible, the point of departure, and also the focus, and also the end of the area that we are aiming to get to is this relationship with Jesus Christ. It starts there and it ends there. So we can help you to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. We don't bring freedom and healing and hope. You and I cannot give that to anybody. Your friend that you are busy with can find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus when they understand the Word of God. So your purpose as an Adventist Doesn't matter where you are on this globe, in Nepal or in Natal, you are there as an ambassador, 2 Corinthians 5. You are there as a guide to help people to understand the Bible. God will use your schools, your hospitals, your churches, and your digital church, your social media activity to deliver on this promise. And God will use you personally in your work area, with your neighbors next door, when you go and throw in petrol. Have you ever spoken to that person pouring the petrol into your petrol tank, given him a steps to Christ, given him an invite for a Bible study? Your promise is that you can help them to understand the Bible so that they can understand who Jesus is. They must discover Jesus for themselves. Then you are there to assist them to build that relationship with Jesus Christ, because no church on this globe is a free ticket to heaven. The Adventist Church is not any guarantee that you or I will be in heaven. It's your relationship with Jesus Christ that guarantees that. And your purpose there is not to hammer down the 28 fundamental doctrines of our church before you can say to them, you are now saved. No. Your purpose there is to help them to build a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. And when they start understanding the Bible, then they end up keeping the 28 fundamental principles automatically, and they wish to do so because of your beautiful way that you live life. You are a walking ambassador, and that is attractive to them, and they start asking you more questions, and then you are able to help them to understand the Bible, to find ultimate freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. Our pioneers were fulfilling on this promise even before we had a name. Our church, as you know, came out of the Great Disappointment, 1844, 1843, 1844, and only 19 years later, in 1863, was our church organized into an official church in 1863, and then given the name Seventh-day Adventist Church. And our pioneers before that had exactly the same. What happened after the Great Disappointment? They were astounded that Jesus did not come. Hundreds of thousands of people went back to their Baptist congregations, their Methodists, their Catholic churches, etc., and only a handful, couple of thousand, remained behind, and they climbed into the Word of God. Where did we make this mistake? So the Adventist movement before and after the Great Disappointment existed to help people to understand the Bible. Though that handful of people, they were Bible students, and they tried to find out, where did we make the mistake? What did we not understand? So once again, just like our pioneers, you can do exactly the same thing. Our promise is for every human being, including our own members. So the promise isn't only for those who are non-Adventists. You and I must understand this promise. We need to memorize this promise. We need to make this promise part of our lives. We need to live this promise. We need to exude this promise. So every Seventh-day Adventist is in a constant search to understand the Bible more and more. I mean, I've never stopped studying. My good friend Neville, we were neighbors at Helderberg College. Has never stopped studying. Most of you have never stopped studying. We've got this marvelous church that goes through the whole Bible approximately every 7 or 8 years through the Sabbath School Lesson Quarterly program, absolutely unique amongst all Christianity of other denominations. So we never stop learning. We always are in the search to understand the Bible more and more. So the promise is not just for future new members. The promise is obviously for them as well, but it is for current members. It's for you and me, so that we can help each other to understand the Bible. The theology of the koinonia, this is now the church, is 100 sermons easily, which explains the reason why it's important to have a church, the reason why it's important to go to church. None of us is an island on our own. We need to help each other, even if we are second generations like I am, second generation Adventists like I am. I need to be able to get from you help. One of you can possibly help me in my Christian walk. And then we are already delivering on this promise. Every touch point is already fulfilling on this promise. If you think about that, is exactly how we are organized as a worldwide Protestant organization. We're all doing it. We've just never defined it accurately. This is the first time that we've now defined it. So all our touch points, local congregations, we need to get them all in line. They're already saying this, but we haven't really spelled it out clearly. It's not visible in the church when somebody walks in. It should be there. It should be on your business card. If you are a businessman, it should be on the back of your business card. It should be on, you can have a rubber stamp made with your name and your email and your telephone number. You must always have an email because that will never change. And the chances of your telephone changing is also minimal, but if one changes, you have the other one. So it's important that that you can have a rubber stamp made, and whenever you give a Steps to Christ out, you rubber stamp the last page in the back of the Steps to Christ or Desire of Ages or the Great Controversy with your name, your email, and our logo with our promise, our undertaking, our branding. So every member worldwide should be able to do this. We should all say with one voice, all 22 million of us, we can help you understand the Bible to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. Freedom, healing, and hope. Freedom is reflected through our schools and doctrines, especially salvation and the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a tremendous study that all of us understand. I'm not going to go through all of those points. You're welcome to photograph the screen and look at this later, no problem. And also, by the way, I'm willing to email you this PowerPoint so that you can share this in your church. Every single church should see this, and it's a pity that in the last 2 years, this has not happened. We have 13 divisions around the world. We have unions under every division. We've got conferences by the hundreds under every, together globally, under the unions, etc. And this is not filtered through. So Neville and I are pushing this because we believe in this. And it's important that we as Adventists, because we understand this, the Sabbath, we understand the word freedom differently to any other denomination. So I'm not going to discuss that further, but this is the Sabbath is something that you can introduce somebody to. You cannot give them freedom. You cannot give them healing. You cannot give them hope, but the Sabbath will provide that through your relationship with Jesus, through you causing them to have a relationship with Jesus. They will start understanding the Bible more clearly, which will eventually lead to freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus, of which the Sabbath is an absolute sign, an eternal sign. Right. Same thing with healing, forgiveness, etc. I was at a camp meeting. I was a speaker, and I was asked to talk about forgiveness. It took me 12 months to work out these sermons. And there's one book in the Bible that talks about forgiveness. And it doesn't use the word forgiveness once. Do you know what that book is called? That is one of the shortest, smallest little books in the Bible, and it took me a whole 12 months to study that. And I think I had 10 or so sermons on that subject of forgiveness. And that is a book of Philemon. Philemon is a tremendous book on forgiveness, and this is really a vitally important aspect. We as Adventists, very fortunately, we understand Matthew 6 verses 14 and 15, which says that if you do not forgive anybody else, the Lord will not forgive you. We all understand that. And as we go through that process daily in our lives, our Christian walk, we are healed internally. Otherwise, if we are not able to forgive somebody else, we are actually drinking poison. And I've got research that I did with a professor at Stanford University on the subject, where he proves that certain illnesses, certain depression level, types of depression are caused by people who do not forgive. So it's very important that we Adventists understand that, etc., etc. Right, so once again, we can help you to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. And this is what we do. People can find other organizations. If they want entertainment, go to other churches. Don't come to the Adventists. We don't offer entertainment. If you want to be healed, those false healing services where they mislead gullible people and they empty their pockets with hundreds, sometimes thousands of rands in one evening, because it's just one money-making racket. Don't come to the Adventists. If that's your thing, we can't offer you that. What we can offer you is we can help you to understand the Word of God. We can help you to understand the Bible, and when you start understanding the Bible, you will automatically find freedom, healing, and hope in Jesus. We cannot give you freedom. We cannot give you healing. We cannot give you hope. Only Jesus can do that, and we will lead you to Jesus, and that will happen automatically. Both contemporary and traditional Adventists are already delivering on this promise. Think of yourself, all of us, deliver on this promise, some to a smaller extent, some to a greater extent, but we are delivering on this promise. But what we need to do now is identify this as our brand, have it on everywhere in our home, written in our Bibles, written in our entrance halls of our churches, on your business cards. Think about this every single day, please, my friend, till Jesus comes again. Because then you will really be aware of this, and you will be living this even more than what you're living it at the moment. We must get better at this. It's important that we develop the best tools for helping people to understand the Bible. And this is why Neville and I assisted Neville, and together we developed this cell phone evangelism technology. And we are now utilizing the digital technology worldwide. And tonight, Neville is going to discuss other possibilities with you that will blow your mind. And most Adventists haven't even thought in this direction. And our little congregation, 8 years ago, was the first of all 150,000 congregations in the world that became a digital church. And that is why Ted Wilson awarded Neville with the most effective digital church 2.5 years ago. I think it was August in Korea. He gave us the honor of recognizing the fact of what we've done. And we are here tonight to share with you ideas that will never close your church doors. That's never an option. You must always have a congregation. But if you want to be effective, you need to have a congregation plus a digital church. We need to get better at this. We need to develop new tools. And if you look at the book of Ezekiel, 2,610 years ago, excuse me, Isaiah, not Ezekiel, Isaiah wrote that the Lord will be able to do a new thing. He will be able to actually do it quickly, and he will cause like a new Amazon river. He doesn't use the word Amazon. He uses the word like a new river where there was never a river before. Can you imagine an Amazon river running through central South Africa, which is maybe 10 and 20 and 30 kilometers wide at certain points, with billions of swimming pools amount of water crossing one line per second? Can you imagine that? That is what Isaiah wrote 2,611 years ago, to be exact, in a prophecy that he made, which nobody understands. It's only now that we start understanding what is that new river. This is the new tools. that are going to be, we are now busy developing. And because of the dynamic leadership that we have at AWR, we employed a very, very top engineer, computer engineer, that is now working for us for the last 2 years, developing our own new technology platforms. If Facebook closes like it is now closing for political things, it will close on religious very shortly. We will not be embarrassed. We will have our own sort of Facebook. We will have our own sort of Twitter. We will have our own sort of social media marketing. So technology must be employed. This is vitally important. And every Adventist entity must create experiences that lead members and visitors alike to a deeper understanding of Jesus and the Bible. We need to use the church, but we need to be awake in what is happening in the world out there, and then take this further and use this new technology. And we at AWR, Neville and I, are able to assist you so that you are able to move and to shake the earth and to actually cause a river of new converts like has never been seen before. You can do this on this Advent Hope platform very easily. We need to think out of the box. We need to think big. Paul wrote exactly the same 1,910 years ago, whatever it was. Exactly the same thing as what Isaiah wrote 2,611 years ago. So it's very important, and only now, and by the way, Ellen White wrote exactly the same 130 years ago. So those three prophets have been saying exactly the same thing. It's only now that we've had the digital age come to its full potential in the last 2-3 years that Neville and I really understand what those three prophets really meant. And when we employ new technology, we can help you to understand the Bible, to find freedom, healing, and hope, not just in Natal, not just in the area where you are, let's call it Howick or Pietermaritzburg or whatever it is. But now you are able, as a community of, let's say, 25 people in this group, or wherever you are outside of this group, maybe you're in Cape Town like Arnold is, whatever, you can actually form a community and use the technology that Neville will explain to you just now, that we will make available, and we will also train you in that. We're also with cell phone evangelism, etc. We can also assist you with the reaping efforts, etc. No problem whatsoever, so that you can reach way further than the boundaries of your physical church. You need to have the church, but you need to look past that. So when you look at the branding checklist, we must focus on the customer, not the brand. Yes, this promise does that. Does this deliver through every touch point? Yes, definitely. There's no doubt. This promise does that. Does it include the essence of the brand and the reason for its existence? No doubt. Does it reflect the original intent of our founders? Yes. People within your organization identify with this promise? No problem with that whatsoever. So this is absolutely, Neville and I, for the last year and a half, have tried to pull this to pieces. We failed miserably. This is spot on. I'm in love with this, and I would like every one of you tonight to embrace this brand. And wherever you go, you walk and talk this brand. And in our digital presentation tonight, this is the bottom line. And that's why Neville asked me to present this first, because this is the foundation on which he's going to build and change your community to become a river, a roaring Amazon running through central southern Africa. Okay, Neville.
Okay. Thank you, Gideon. So, yes, that's a very important thing. If you can remember that promise in your back of your mind, if you can internalize that, that would be fantastic. Now, I think Gideon has already alluded to and spoken about it, because we believe that you guys have been reaching out in different means digitally. And of course, now you've got a lot more freedom. I just got a letter today telling me that the restrictions in South Africa has been relaxed even more. I believe your borders are open, and I believe a lot of nice things is possible. I don't know for how long, but that's how it is. Same as with us. How long, we don't know. But anyway, it's there. So, of course, we want to be in church. And of course, we want to be with our brothers and our sisters. And of course, it's very important because we share the love and the warmth when we are together, much more than when we are not. But unfortunately, the realities of research have told us this. Gideon's mentioned one. The general attention span of people currently is about 8 seconds. So you will see that a lot of our people are doing programs, and take a look at those programs when it is broadcast on YouTube or when it is broadcast wherever. Take a look at those programs and take a look at the figures, and you will see the figures are low. And there's nothing wrong with the speakers. The speakers are great speakers. No, nothing wrong with the speakers. I love listening to Dr. Yongimbi Papu, for instance. I think he's a great speaker. But I've looked at some of his seminars and I think, no, man, this cannot be. There must be something wrong here. I can go through many of those speakers, and I can refer you to many, and I can say, look at it and see what's happening. And there's just like no fireworks. Well, it's very simple. People have an attention span of 8 seconds. Well, I can't preach a sermon in 8 seconds, but what I can do in 8 seconds, I can tell people what I'm going to tell them. And then if that grabs the attention of the person will listen. If it doesn't, the person's gone. It's like Gideon has said, they're on their cell phones. That's how it is. From the one page to another, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. That's how it is. So I've got 8 seconds, and in 8 seconds, I've got to tell people what I do. So let's talk about Revelation 13. If I want to start that sermon, my first sentence better be something like, hey, I'm going to tell you tonight exactly what 666 means. Now I've got his attention. I've told him, this is what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what the 666 is all about. And now they say, okay, I want to hear that. Fine, I'll stick around. Then, depending on how I develop that sermon, if I can develop that sermon by producing really good material, they'll stay. If I develop that sermon by presenting really bad material, they'll go. Won't see them. That's as simple as that. So 8 seconds, that first 8 seconds must count. And in that first 8 seconds, not just must it count, in that first 8 seconds, I have got to put in all the really important keywords that will be the search words that people will go and search for on Google and YouTube, the two greatest search engines on the internet, on the media, so that they can find me. The ones that I've not advertised to, the ones coming in per chance because they were searching for answers. Now, do you know, for instance, that if you type in the word prophecy on the Google search engine, do you know that you'll get something like 160 million hits? 160 million people looking at, wow, I want to know what is prophecy. When we did this research at General Conference, we found out that the more than 100 million people are searching for life's most serious questions.
Per day, Neville.
So they want to know. It's not a question that they don't want to know. They want to know. We just got to give it to them right. So in first 8 seconds, we've got to tell them, listen, I'm going to talk to you about the 666. Listen, I'm going to tell you who the true church is. I know that sounds a little unconventional. We sort of think, no, we mustn't do that. We must build up to this. No, that's not how it works anymore. You tell the person, hey, I'm going to tell you what the true church is, who the true church is. I'm going to tell you who's in the false church. And then you take it from there. You need to do that in that first 8 seconds. So that's very important. This goes for everybody, even the people sitting in your church building. Think about that. Second thing that research tells us, people want less face-to-face communication. They don't like face-to-face communication anymore. Yes, we do, but we are old. We are still the baby boomers and the ones before that. So yeah, we like face-to-face communication. But the others, no, they don't. They prefer less face-to-face communication. They actually don't like you to tell them where you will speak to them. They will tell you where you may speak to them if you want to. So they want to choose the technological platform of their choice. They want less face-to-face communication, and they've got an attention span of 8 seconds. So these things we all need to remember, and we need to bear that in mind. If we want to reach people out there, wherever they are, and we have to reach them where they are, and right now, they are on their cell phones. So if you want to reach people, you've got to reach them on their cell phones. Yes, of course you have to have a church. Of course you have to have sermons. Yes, of course you have to do everything else. But if you want to reach the people, if you as a congregation want to reach people, you got to reach them where they are. They are on their cell phones. So you have to consider a digital ministry, whether you like it or not, no matter where you are, no matter how small you are, no matter how big you are, you need to have a digital ministry. And this is what it is all about. So digital ministry is what I want to tell you about. So I'm going to share my screen, or just share one or two things with you. Here's one of the things I'm going to share with you. Take a look at that photo. It's quite a neat little photo, that one. Well, let me tell you, last year in November, I was asked to go to Papua New Guinea. And I went to Papua New Guinea. Now, this was very interesting. The whole thing was very interesting. Because, of course, when I fly from Namibia to get to Papua New Guinea, I have to fly first to Qatar, Doha, and then I have to fly to Brisbane, and then I have to fly to Sydney, and then I have to fly to Port Moresby. So it's a long journey to just get there. And so I was asked to also stop over in Australia at Sydney. I was asked to stop over there. And one of the people from the division, they were going to accompany me to Papua New Guinea, because they said, it might be just a little bit good if somebody went with me to Papua. There are a little bit of pitfalls in that country that if you do not know, and if you don't live in that area, you can get yourself into trouble there pretty easily. So anyway, one of the Australians went with me. We went to this specific area in Papua New Guinea, and when we were there, 2 of the other divisional officers were there as well from Australia, from that division. And we have been trying to get into Australia and speaking to the Australians about digital ministry and missionary work. And we just couldn't get an invitation from them. It was very, very, very difficult. We spoke to them, they spoke to us, but just nothing materialized. And so on this trip, that first night, the President Kepsi Elora from Papua New Guinea says, I should address them. And so I addressed them and I talked to them about all this. But this is just like it's a brief overview. I was not there to train this specific people, but it was just like this meeting run by the SID, and they gave me this opportunity to address them a little bit about it. And so I spoke to them. I had an hour and a half, and I spoke to them. And after speaking to them, they said, this is what we need. We really need this. We'll speak to you more tomorrow. When we left the meeting, the Australians came to me and they said, where are you going after Papua New Guinea? I said, well, I'm going home. They said, can you stop over in Sydney? I said, yeah, I suppose I could. So I had to stop over in Sydney, and I spent some very, very good and valuable time with a division there in Sydney. And they are now working with us very, very eagerly. And it's actually a pleasure to work with them. They're coming up with some super ideas as well. Anyway, so then I started training Papua New Guinea. Now, my reason to go and train Papua New Guinea was for the Total Member Involvement Project. Total Member Involvement has this project every year where they have a lot of evangelistic sermons in one area, and volunteers from all over the world go and preach there. And then at the end of the series, people are baptized. When I was there in November, prior to training in digital ministry, the people in Papua New Guinea, when I got there, they told me they're planning to baptize 350,000 people. I thought, excuse me, I think I heard this wrong. I said, wait a minute, just give me those figures again. You what? After the TMI said, how many? 350,000 people. I said, well, I'm sure that, are you sure it's not like 35,000? No, 350,000. In fact, they, in anticipation, had built 300 churches already in anticipation for all the people that are going to be baptized. So, wow, that takes faith. You're building churches you don't even have congregations for yet. They said, oh, but that's a little bit of a problem because the churches are already now full. Just with the work that they've done, the preparation work, that is already full. They're actually now thinking of building a lot more. I said, oh, okay. Obviously, I do not understand this. Anyway, as we progressed, as I was giving the training, a number of things came to the fore. One of them, they came to me and they said, you know what, since you have been giving us this training in this digital media, we didn't know about this. We were just going to go through things in the conventional way. But since you have now given us this digital platform, we have upped our goal. We spoke about it. We've decided about it. And our goal is now 500,000 people to be baptized. I thought, wow, that is a goal. I must say these people, they have faith. I think there's nothing wrong with their faith. But I was skeptical. Anyway, I was going to preach in Papua New Guinea, and the preaching was going to be in May of this year. I was part of that TMI project. I was going to be one of the preachers in one of the churches in Port Moresby. And then that couldn't materialize because obviously COVID-19 came around, and there was the lockdowns and all the rest, and nobody could fly. And of course, so we couldn't go. But the people in Papua New Guinea kept in contact, and they said, you know what, we know you can't come, but we are working. We are not stopping. And if you come later, that's great. We will have more people to baptize, but we are busy and we are working. So, wow, that's fantastic. And Cameron Worry, one of the communication directors there, he said, you know what, this is working fantastic. Your cell phone evangelism is just absolutely unreal. I said, well, I'm very happy to hear that. And so they sent me this photograph. This photograph was the baptismal candidates out of a very small church, something a little bit bigger than your church, I understand, but less than 100 members in the church. This is the work of less than 100 people in a congregation that went out and worked on digital platforms, cell phone and social media. They worked, they presented evangelism sermons, and this was one Sabbath's baptisms. There are 2,000 people in this group. 2,000 people. Get it? Less than 100 people in the church. They went out, they worked, they baptizing 2,000 people. That's amazing. That's amazing. Let me share another photo on my screen. Another area in Papua New Guinea. Again, here's the pastors in the front here standing in a row. There's the baptismal candidates coming down the bank there, and they are being pushed down the line, and they go out on the other side, and they are being baptized. Well, up to now, from May, which we were supposed to have the TMI meetings, right up to now, November, they have baptized in Papua New Guinea more than 100,000 people just using digital ministry.
Amen and amen.
They could not do this because the churches are locked. They cannot go to churches. There's no conventional way of doing it. They cannot do that. So they do it in this way. They use the digital platforms, and they are baptizing people by the thousands. So digital platforms are really, really important. There's many, 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 many more stories I can share with you. Many more stories. Maybe I shall tell you just one more. This is in our area. Let's talk about our area for a little bit. This specific person, somehow or the other, got the invitation to listen to an evangelistic series that was going to be sent out on her cell phone to her. Her name is Shanice. I actually do have a photograph, but I'm not sure whether I'll find it quickly. Otherwise, I will put it up for you. Her name is Shanice. She lives way out in the sticks. There is no church close by. No church. They live somewhere between Aberdeen, Beaufort West, and Oudtshoorn. Sort of in the middle of those three, on the border of the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. So Shanice decides that she wants to share these messages with someone that she knows. His name is Dolly Jewel, like in Joel, Dolly Ewell. And so Dolly Ewell gets these sermons from Gideon's brother. Shanice too gets it from Gideon's brother, from Marius. Marius gets the sermons from me. So it's my sermons that goes to Marius. Marius is also a cell phone evangelist, digital evangelist. So he sends it out further. It gets to Shanice and Dolly Ewell. And so Dolly calls Gideon's brother. Gideon's brother gives him my details. He calls me at one point in time. And when he speaks to me, I can hear this is probably one of the most sincere people I've ever heard in my life. And he says to me, he says, I really need to be baptized. I need to start a new life. And he tells me his testimony. It's an incredible testimony. He's 73 years old. And they decided that he was going to die first and his wife was going to die last. And so he put everything that he owned into his wife's name. And then his wife died. And in her testament, she made everything over to the children because he was going to die first. And so the children inherited everything, and they kicked him out of his house. They kicked him out of everything that he had. And Dolly found himself on the street. And eventually he got a little piece of land, and he started living on this little land under the sky. And slowly but surely, as and when he got something, he started building up. And then he met Shanice, and he started getting the Bible studies. And so he tells me, he says, I'm so tired of this world. He says, I just want to go home. He says, I want to just see Jesus. He says, I want to be like one of those cart horses with those flaps on the eyes. I don't want to see anything on the side. I don't want to see anything at the back. I just want to look up front, and I want to see Jesus, and I want to go home. And he says to me, and this is his sincerity coming through. He says, Dominee, ek moet gedoop word. I have to be baptized. I have to use communion. I have to pay my tithes. I have to be right with Jesus. That's the only thing that matters. And so I say, look, I'll see what I can do, but you are very far, and I don't know. I think there is no pastor in Beaufort West at the moment. I think so. But I will have to try and find out. And I'm still battling to find out. I've got a retired minister that he's willing to go, but he's just had a bit of a glitch himself. There are problems. So yes, I'm battling to get somebody to go to Shanice and Dolly to go and get them baptized. But they need to be baptized because they've answered the digital call. They're far away from everybody else. Nobody else would have been able to get to Dolly Ewell and Shanice. But the nice thing about this story is Shanice got the messages first. She brought the messages to Dolly Jewell. But Shanice smoked, and she was using alcohol. And at times the alcohol and the desire for smoking just got too much. And she said, you know, she's going to give it up. She can't do it. And Dolly, the one who she gave the messages to, he became the stronger one. And he said, no, you can't give it up. And I'll be here with you. And I will lead you. But we've got to get through this thing together. We've got to get to Jesus. You too, because of your addictions, you are also sick and tired, and you need to get rid of them, and you need to conquer them, but you also need Jesus. And so he started being the stronger one, the one leading and guiding, the one that was supposed to be his mentor. And now they are ready. They are ready to be seen. They are ready to be welcomed. They want to attend church. They want to be a part of the family. And there's nothing else they can do. So currently, they are now members of our digital church until we can find somebody that can go there and baptize them and take them into a church. But for now, at least, they're getting the church services and everything that goes with it. They are at least a part of the family of God in this way. So, whether it's thousands or whether it's one or two in a very outlying area called Rietbron, it doesn't matter. We can reach them with digital. There's a lot of people out there. Michiel van Wyk and his family, I can tell you about them. I'm thinking about South Africans now. There are so many that I can tell you about. We have got a charismatic pastor. He started getting these digital sermons. He started listening to them. But instead of getting annoyed or instead of just making a decision for himself, he started arranging Bible studies at his church, and he started playing the digital sermons at his church. and his entire church, him and his entire church became Seventh-day Adventists. This is not the first one. We've had 3 already that this has happened with. Entire churches walking over and becoming Seventh-day Adventists because of the digital power, the power of digitally reaching these people and getting to them. It's magnificent what is happening. And it's incredible because it's got nothing to do with us. Once the message is out there, we are not there. We cannot influence them. They don't even know us in many cases. Not our personalities, nothing. They've got no relationship with us. But when that message goes out, it's an audience between God and themselves. It's where they are in the audience chamber of God and the Holy Spirit is there and the Holy Spirit convicts them of sin and of judgment. And then they make a decision. And when they make a decision, we can then catch them up and we can assist them and make them part of the family of God. It's an incredible experience, an absolute incredible experience. And I can tell you many, many, many stories from all over the world where I've been. In Zambia, where we baptized about 20,000 people. Papua New Guinea now 100,000. And so I can go on and on and on and tell you about how we've reached people. So yes, we are currently, as far as I know, the only digital church that are operating in this area. There is a digital church starting up in the General Conference now, and there's also a digital church starting up in the Philippines, where we've got a center for digital evangelism. We built that. We've just built it. We've got a lot of young people working there. And we are busy building a center in Pretoria at Eloffsdal. All the permissions have just been granted, and as far as I understand, Dolph and them are just waiting for the steel. Once the steel arrives, we are going to start with the building. So there's some incredible things happening because of digital media, because of digital ministries. So what I'm saying to you is, you as a very small little congregation, as a very tiny little congregation up there in Hilton or wherever you are, you can of course have your church. That's great. You should have it. But your church can reach out and touch the lives of hundreds and thousands of people if you are willing to do what you are envisioning to doing. If you can do a digital church specifically in English, and we can certainly assist by sending all the English people we meet up to you, that we can certainly do to that digital church. The Afrikaans people can, at the moment, they can come under our digital church, and the English people can go under yours for this point in time. But you will be surprised at the amount of people that you will pick up, people that have fallen through the cracks, people that have disappeared out of our churches for many, many reasons. We're picking them up in the Afrikaans community. We're picking them up every single week. People, oh, you know, I'm an Adventist. I've always been an Adventist. I've never left the Adventist church, but I don't go to church. I don't feel safe there anymore. I don't feel comfortable there anymore. I don't go there, or I'm in Korea, or I'm in Australia, or I'm in Argentina, or wherever. And we're catching them up, and they sit and they say, oh, it's so good. And we do the whole church thing. We do Sabbath Vespers. We do the Sabbath School program, where we start off with the song service. We have the pre-Sabbath School presentation. We have the missions reading. We do the offerings. We do the Sabbath School lesson study. We have church. We have Sabbath closing. We do the prayer meetings. We do everything. The week of prayer, everything we do on cell phone and Zoom. Cell phone is cheaper for the people that cannot afford the data. They can do it on the cell phone. On WhatsApp, it's easier. It's cheaper. If they can't afford the data, they can go to YouTube. That's cheaper. And if they really can afford it, they can go to Zoom. That's a little bit more expensive. But that's how we do it. We make it possible for the people so that we can deliver on that promise. We are there to help people to understand the Bible so that they can find true freedom, true healing, and true hope in Jesus Christ. Frank, I don't know if there's anything that you would perhaps want me to talk about that we spoke on Sunday that maybe I forgot, or maybe there's something else, or there's questions. Then right now I think I'm open to it.
You mentioned about you passing on names to the union president. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, that's the way we operate. Obviously, the whole idea at Adventist World Radio and Total Membership Involvement is from broadcast to baptism. So when we're talking about digital media, no matter what, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Zoom or Twitter or WhatsApp or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's basically a broadcast. You're broadcasting out there to the people out there, and you want to get them from broadcast to baptism. That means you want to take them from outside to inside. Eventually, we want to get them face to face in a relationship with the brothers and sisters where they should be, the church. So the idea is to get them into church as soon as we possibly can. There are a number of ways that we do that, but when we get to that situation, yes, we try and get, like I'm doing with Dolly Joel now. I've spoken to the Cape Conference. I have reached out. They've agreed that Gerard, somebody or the other, I forget his surname, but he's a retired pastor. He works with Helderberg, I think, or through Helderberg Church. They've agreed that he can go and baptize them, but like I said, he's just had a little glitch himself, little illness and so on. So we're trying, but we're working there, and we try and get somebody to go that is obviously the closest, and we try and get them to their congregation or into a congregation as soon as possible. And this is not always possible. Like I say, they sometimes sit there and sometimes it takes time. Obviously, we don't want to lose them. So we put them into this digital church where they can at least experience church. They can start learning about the culture of Seventh-day Adventism, because they start learning about Sabbath opening. They start learning about making sure that you keep your offerings. We teach people to have a little bottle, and we tell them, hey, it's time for the offering. Put your offering in the bottle, close the lid. Don't touch that bottle. That's not yours. It's the Lord's. And when you get to a church, take that bottle along with you, then give it. That's the Lord's. Tithes, of course, is much more easier. We tell them, listen, we'll give you a bank account, pay it into the bank account, make sure you mark it as tithe. We must see it's tithe. That's very important. And then we try and find out which conference at least they are in, if possible, even the church. But if we know which conference they are in, then we send that money to that conference, because that's the way it should go. If we don't, we send it into our local conference or our local union. And then at least we know it's still in the right place. Because people want to pay tithe. There's Dolly Joel, for instance. Not that he's got a lot of tithe. I think maybe it'll be like maybe $10 or maybe $20 at times. But he wants to tithe. And it's the right thing for him to do. And he wants to do the right thing. And so if possible, we want to make it possible for him. And then we just, because we want to do the right thing as well. We want to get it to the right conference, the right union, and so on, so that they can use the funds that as per it should be.
This is digressing slightly, but it's led to a communication between your church and our church. And we watched a video on a lady, maybe in 2 seconds. Just tell us about her, how little she earns and how she's changed a massive Catholic community into starting an Adventist church before she was even baptized.
Yes, Kashira Village is an amazing story, actually. Kashira Village, Bobby and Dries Ackerman, they stay up on the Kavango River in a place called Kashira Village. That's communal land, so they have to, and they had to ask permission. They had to go and see the Hompa, or the headman, or the captain, or whatever you want to call him. Here we call him the Hompa. They had to go and see the Hompa and then get a piece of land. And the Hompa gave them a piece of land. But if you do communal living You are part of the community. That's how it works. Now, Bobby and them, they don't really have money. In fact, they have none. And Bobby still has a child. Okay, it's not a child anymore. It's really an adult, but it's a child in all other respects. She's 37, the girl. Renette, just tell me, what is it that she has again? She's cerebral retarded. Am I saying that right? I don't mean to be derogatory in that, but anyway, she's got cerebral problems. She cannot walk properly. She cannot move her hands properly. Her mind is really gone. She can only utter sounds and so on. But Bobby and her husband and this child, that's where they are. And so Bobby gets a pension, an old age pension, which is 1,300 Namibian dollars or 1,300 rands. It's one-on-one. And they get 1,300 rand for their daughter. That's what they get. That's the total sum of their income, 2,600 Namibian dollars or rands. But they get some help from their children, their other children that are healthy, and they get some help from one or two other people, and they get some help from us a little bit. So they manage. And of course, they really work hard. They plant and they work very hard and try and do things. Dries fixes the cars of the people up there. Unfortunately, it's communal area, so sometimes you fix a car and you have to wait 6 months before you get your money. But you have to, because you're part of the community, so you have to help. If that's something that you can do, you have to help. And so it's not like business as we know it. It works a little bit different. So they work up there and they live there. And the community that they were in is strictly Roman Catholic. And communal areas, and if you know something about tribalism and stuff like that, you will know that what the Hompa decides, or what the regional councillor decides, basically everybody else is that. In that specific area, it was Catholic. So everyone is Catholic and nobody else is anything else. That's just how it is. Our church has really tried to get in there and we've just not succeeded. We haven't been able to break in to that Catholic community at all. It was impossible. And so then Bobby and Dries was there, and Bobby and Dries they were part of the first ever digital outreach program that we had, that we launched. They were listening to that. And so when the Sabbath came, they said, this is it. That's what we got to do. So the next morning, being in a communal area, they called the whole community together and they said, listen, we need to tell you, we are members of this community, of this communal area. We have been receiving messages from a minister. That's what they said. And we have listened to these sermons. And from the Bible, we know that Saturday is the Sabbath and we must go to church on Saturday, not Sunday. So from now on, we want to inform you that we will be going to church on Saturday, not Sunday anymore. We will not be Catholics. We will be Seventh-day Adventists. They were not baptized. They had not even finished the lecture series yet. So they became Seventh-day Adventists. They called us. They told us that this is what they want to do. How can they do it? What should they do? How do we start keeping the Sabbath? When does it start? You know, millions of questions. We helped them as far as best we could telephonically, because they live 1,000 kilometers away from me, 1,000 kilometers away from me. So I can't quickly travel there every day. That's impossible. So we spoke to them, told them some of our congregations lives a little bit closer. We started getting them connected up to them, got them onto the digital church, introduced them to our church members, told them about it. But then we started finding out that Bobby got this whole church going there, because the community said, well, we trust you. If you say Sabbath is the right thing, if you say we got to go to church on Sabbath, we're going to go to church on Sabbath. So the whole community started going to church on Sabbath. And so what she listened on our church, she would take that and preach it to them. So basically, she became a preacher and a church planter even before she was baptized. And so we led her along. Of course, in the meantime, we gave them some fuel to come down. We met them. We baptized them. Eventually, Pastor Ezekiel Ndangwapu still baptized them. And they got to know how things worked. They became very good Seventh-day Adventists. And of course, they continued their work up there. So even before they were actually baptized, and even before the church was planted and built there, they already had a Pathfinders going of 45 young people. They had a fully fledged Seventh-day Adventist thing going on there before they were even baptized. And of course, then eventually we said, okay, now it's time to organize a little bit more. We got hold of the Northern Namibia Conference. We arranged a big thing. We went up there. We had a full weekend there. And by that time, we had already built them a church structure in terms of the iron structure and the roof. We built that. We spent, our little church spent up to, I think, about 96,000, 100,000 that we spent just getting that all ready for them. And then we had this whole thing where we invited them and told them about it, and where we had this wonderful, and of course we baptized 70 people that day. So that was a fantastic story, and Bobby's been doing a great job there. They're into the health message. They are planting. The whole community is planting. They've got a garden going there. They understand that living healthy is an important thing. They have their prayer meetings, they have their church services, and they are doing absolutely wonderful job. And they're breaking into that Roman Catholic community like it's never been possible. In fact, the presidents and the people from that area, they said, this is incredible because they have not managed. They just couldn't get in there. And here, everything has just gone smooth, and it's turning out to be a wonderful story up there.
We're having a bit of computer problems tonight, so I've had a couple of apologies from folks that couldn't get on. But I think it's fantastic to hear how your message is going out, how it's touching lives. You haven't even told of the people that walk for a whole day to get to the church and sleep outside the church to go to church on Sabbath and then walk back the whole of Sunday.
Yeah, that's also in Bobby's community. That's also in Bobby's community. They walk from a little village called Dosa, but they actually walk Friday afternoon from Dosa, and they come to Kashira, and they sleep over on Friday night so that they can be there for the Sabbath opening, and then they are there for the Sabbath service, and they stay until Sabbath closing, and then they take to the road and go back home to Dosa.
So the one thing that I've appreciated, and time is going to kill us now as far as folks need to go and get some sleep so that they can get to work tomorrow. But we would love to have you back and help us with organizing our program so that we can reach out more than what we've done. So we'll discuss it with our little committee, but for those that are visiting, your church took us on as a challenge, but it doesn't say we can't crook and ask other churches to help us. They've said to help finish this church, they will contribute a rand for every rand we raise, and we've already raised 19,500 towards that project.
Wonderful.
And we've raised between Freddie talking to the Rustenburg Church, we've raised most probably, well, ours alone was about 1,640 items of clothing for them, besides toys and shoes and all of that. So imagine if we work together as a team around South Africa. You guys are going to have to be running to get that money to keep the Rand for a Rand story. And we'll be able to help with that, church. There's also someone, Jerome Lindeboom, they battled to get on tonight, and he was excited about this idea. I'll introduce you to him sometime. But we look, I think the Lord can open up incredible doors if we allow ourselves to listen and to follow him where he opens up for us. Neville, thank you very much for chatting to us. I don't know if there's anyone else who would like to ask. I see Cliff has got his mic open. You've got a question, Cliff.
Maybe just before anybody asks questions, I can just say this. Whatever you do digitally, if you want to grow digitally, thanks for the help. We really like that. And of course, we would love that, and we'll give you reports and all the rest of it. But as far as your digital church is concerned, of course, you keep your local church going, but you can run a digital church in conjunction with your local church. You don't have to, either one or the other. We have the church going, and we just broadcast whatever we are preaching to the digital church as well. So we can certainly assist you. We can give you all the material that you will be needing. We can give you all the training that you will be needing. And I have access to all the things in General Conference. So even from there, we can assist you and help you and make sure that you've got everything that you need. If that's what you want. We are not allowed to just come in and force ourselves on you, as you know. We are just a department or a function of General Conference. You have to request it, and then we can assist and help. That's what I'm here for. I can go anywhere and I can do anything as far as digital evangelism is concerned and training people, but I have to be invited. I cannot just come and say, hey, I want to do this here. No, I can't do that. Unfortunately, you guys have to request that. And then that's not a problem. Then we can do that.